Hey yo, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Jim Jordan absolutely grills Lena Khan, the head of the FTC, all because they went out of their way to target Elon Musk. I guess not too many things have changed. Let's dive in.
Madam Chair, why are you harassing Twitter?
Congressman, thanks for the question. As you might know, the FTC's work on Twitter goes back a decade. Back in 2000,
I'm not talking about a decade. I'm talking about now. 12 demand letters in 10 weeks, over 350 separate requests you've demanded of Twitter. Why are you harassing them?
Twitter has a history of lax security and privacy policies.
You've asked for every single communication relating to Elon Musk, not communications that he just sent to someone or communications he received, but any time he's mentioned. That actually seems more than harassment. That seems like almost an obsession. Why such an intense focus?
So, Congressman, again, it was found that Twitter's lax privacy policies allowed unauthorized users to co-opt Twitter accounts, including that of Fox News. Subsequently, Twitter voluntarily entered into a consent order with the FTC.
Here's what you wrote in December, Madam Chair. Here's what you wrote in December. Identify all journalists and other members of the media to whom Twitter has granted access since Musk bought the company. You want to know the name of every journalist a private company has talked to? Think that's consistent with the First Amendment?
Congressman, as a former journalist, I take extremely seriously the valuable work that they do and understand that there can be instances in which government action is unjustifiably
particularly, Madam Chair, if I could just interject, particularly in the context here. I mean, it's bad enough if you got government asking a private company about who are the journalists you're talking to. You name 4 of them and say, we want the other names of any journalists you may in fact be communicating with. That's bad enough. And I think a threat to the First Amendment, freedom of the press. But in the context of giving us information about how government had suppressed speech on these platforms, that's the context you're asking for. I think that's particularly troubling, don't you?
Congressman, the consent decree that we have prohibits Twitter from sharing personal information with third parties. When we read in the papers, like everybody else, that Twitter may have granted access to third parties, that's what our teams were seeking information about. Again, this is a company whose history with the FTC goes
Madam
back
Chair,
a decade.
we got limited time. Madam Chair, who is David Roque?
Could you repeat that, Congressman?
David Roque, R-O-Q-U-E. Who is David Roque?
I'm not familiar with
You
that.
deposed him last month, June 21st, 2023. David Roque is the independent partner for Ernst & Young's independent assessment of Twitter's program. That's part of this consent decree. Do you know what Mr. Roque said in that deposition?
I'm not aware.
Okay, let me read it for you then, because I think it's pretty important. Mr. Roque testified, again, in front of your lawyers, you deposed him, testified that FTC's conduct made him feel as if the FTC was trying to influence the outcome of the engagement before it had started. He said, in some of the discussions that we were having with the Federal Trade Commission, expectations were being conveyed about what those results should be before we had even begun any procedures. So they're the independent assessor in this consent decree the FTC has with Twitter, and you're telling the guy who is the person. He's the guy. He's Joe the accountant who's going to get this information. You're telling him, you're putting your finger on the scale, telling him what you want the outcome to be, and he's supposed to be the independent fact finder.
Jim Jordan brings up this gentleman by the name of David Roque, who was part of an independent study looking into any potential improprieties of Twitter. And this is what he had to say. According to Mr. Roque, he felt that the FTC was attempting to influence his law firm to reach the conclusion that there were deficiencies in Twitter's privacy and information security program. He was so concerned by the FTC communications that he and his colleagues discussed whether the agency threatened to become an adverse threat to the law firm's independence or party outside of the arrangement they had with Twitter trying to influence the outcome of the results. Translation, the FTC wanted a certain outcome here. They didn't care about the independent study. They didn't care about the justice or the system to see justice through. They wanted to hit Elon Musk with everything that they could without, directly taking Twitter away from Musk. See, as it turns out, what we found through the Twitter files around the exact same time of this initial hearing is that the FBI indeed has had its thumb on the scale and has tried to change the way Twitter does business. For instance, there was the direct attempt by the FBI to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story. You had a brief window of time back in 2020 to talk about this issue, about how Joe Biden and his son use their influence to receive money from places like the Burisma company in Ukraine, all around 2014, a very important year. Then also in Romania, and not to mention directly taking money from the Chinese Communist Party. And on that laptop, there was direct evidence that linked Hunter Biden to all these clandestine organizations and the money laundering that sent money back to the big guy, also known as Joe Biden himself. So the FBI had an interest in protecting the Hunter Biden and laptop story, and it begs the question, why? And I'll get to that in just a moment. But they also found in these Twitter files the existence of shadow banning. And that is essentially, you're allowed to have your influence, but your influence is now going to be put in a little box. Okay? And you're not going to reach any extra audiences. This is something that has been used against conservatives for the longest time. And Elon Musk, after finding all this stuff, I think got a little bit radicalized because he realized two very important things. One, that the feds have a vested interest in controlling the freedom of speech. That's something that Elon Musk can't abide. He's a freedom of speech kind of dude, and that's a big reason why he bought Twitter. The guy who ran Twitter before, I think Jack Dorsey, is an avowed leftist who wanted to push his organization in a leftward direction, and furthermore, really tried his best to suppress conservative voices by basically using his user terms of agreement against conservatives for even the most petty of reasons. And so Elon Musk bought this huge weapon of the Democrat Party and the mainstream media and has turned it into a much more earnest, honest debate system that allows people to actually have more of a voice. This is a direct threat to the power of the Democrat Party because they need to suppress any voices outside of their sphere of influence. Remember, the mainstream media has been so far the misinformation arm of the Democrat Party and, more importantly, of the state itself. For instance, if you follow Mike Benz at all, he has been sounding the alarm that the CIA and the FBI has had their fingers in little pies all over the globe, but just as importantly in Silicon Valley. If they can control the messages, that means that they ultimately control the media. Well, Donald Trump is out here now trying to fix things in Washington, and Elon Musk was trying to fix a major problem in Silicon Valley, and after realizing how much power the federal government has, often in an outside of their own purview, outside of the purview of Congress, outside of the purview of the executive branch, outside of the purview of the courts, ultimately you have something that is beyond the Constitution and is now out there literally ruining lives, all because they want to suppress certain stories in order to control a narrative. Now, are their goals that sinister? Well, the good news is that's about as far as it goes. They want to push their power, they want to control things, but they don't want to be the puppet masters themselves because they know that if they start violating too many rights, there's going to be even bigger problems down the road. So they have been trying to prop up the Democrat Party basically by trying to look into Elon Musk and now vilifying him to this day, all because he has now realized that the federal government has directly tried to come after him, all because he bought Twitter. And so now he is teamed up with Donald Trump, and he's looking into all this government waste, fraud, and abuse. And I can't wait to see what happens when the next time the FTC gets subpoenaed. This was before Donald Trump got elected, and now a lot of chickens are about to come home to roost. And I can't wait to see what happens next. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politbro. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. And until then, y'all have a good one.